So 2016 has come to a close and few will be sad to see it go, but as awful as it was at times, there was no shortage of fantastic games to play. I'm Josh the Top Hat Gamer, and it's time to count them down, the top 10 games of 2016. Number 10. Overwatch. If you'd have told me last year that I'd be sinking hours upon hours into a multiplayer-only class-based shooter, I'd have called you crazy. Clearly, I had no idea about Overwatch. Its strange cast of heroes and villains draws you in with some truly outstanding designs, but it's the gameplay that keeps you hooked. Overwatch is super easy to pick up and play, but learning the ins and outs of each character and how they match up against each other is much more satisfying. And the only reason Overwatch isn't sitting higher on this list is its dubious free-to-play style elements and lack of any real single player. But even with these fairly off-putting design choices, Overwatch is a damn good time, and I think that speaks volumes about its quality. Number 9. Deus Ex: Mankind Divided. A worthy successor to the highly acclaimed Deus Ex: Human Revolution, Mankind Divided offers up a polished experience full of possibilities. Do you play Adam Jensen as a sneaky infiltrator avoiding conflict wherever possible? Or do you whip out your weapons and make full use of Jensen's cybernetic power in combat? The level design and quest structure allows for a lot of freedom when it comes to approaching every situation, and while its plot may not offer the same level of personal motivation, because let's face it, revenge is always a good motivator, the more direct use of themes such as segregation and discrimination leaves Mankind Divided feeling far more memorable to me, at least in terms of its overall narrative and world building, and its smooth and open gameplay means I could play it over and over again. Number 8. The Witness. Puzzle games aren't usually my cup of tea. Sure, there are some good ones out there, but none of them have enthralled me to quite the same degree as The Witness. At a glance, the puzzles in The Witness don't seem all that engaging. They're simple line mazes like you might find in a kid's puzzle book. But what makes these puzzles and The Witness so special is the sheer variety that can be achieved with such simple core mechanics. Each section of The Witness provides you with a new way to solve these simple line mazes, and the eventual eureka moment you get as all the pieces sort of click into place is one of the most satisfying feelings a game has ever given me. Wrap that feeling of accomplishment up in a very pretty island setting and sprinkle in the occasional mind-blowing secret, and you have The Witness, and boy is it worth the struggle. Number 7. Ratchet Clank. I will forever love the original Ratchet Clank for the PS2 with its wacky characters, wonderful worlds, and amazing armory, but there's no denying that this year's ground-up remake is the definitive game in the series, even if it is technically a movie game. Sure, it's missing a couple of story beats, and there are some changes to keep it more in line with some of the later games, but otherwise Ratchet & Clank is superior to the original in every way. The game is absolutely stunning with its colourful visuals, and its sound design is pitch perfect, and at the end of the day, it's been a long time since we've had a really solid mascot platformer outside of Nintendo, so it's comforting to see that games in the genre can still be amazing in this day and age. Number 6. Dishonored II. The original Dishonored was one of my favourite games from 2012, and I'd go back to it time and time again to get my fill of sneaky stabbing because it was just so good. Dishonored 2 is just about as good as a sequel to it could be by adding new powers, new characters, and even a whole new region of the world to explore. The story doesn't feel like much of a step forward from the original, but it does allow us to explore Karnaca and build Dishonored 2's world a little bit more, and that's fine with me. More than anything else, Dishonored 2 nails its gameplay and level design, allowing for multiple approaches to every situation, meaning plenty of replayability. I think it's also worth noting that the Clockwork Mansion may just be the single coolest level in all of video games, so yeah, check it out for that if nothing else. Number 5. Dark Souls 3. Man, Dark Souls is a cool series of video games. And I think Dark Souls 3 may be the most well-rounded entry in the series to date, Bloodborne notwithstanding, of course. I would almost call it the Dark Souls Greatest Hits collection, considering how often it makes callbacks to previous Dark Souls games, but it adds more than enough twists to the established lore, as well as plenty of neat gameplay wrinkles to keep Dark Souls 3 feeling like its own thing. In addition to its creative use of the established lore, it has some of the coolest level and boss designs to bash your head against as you die over and over again, and the music is just so overwhelmingly epic. If this is the end of the Dark Souls franchise, then we can be happy knowing that it ended on a high note. Number 4. Uncharted 4. Uncharted 4 may not be the best Uncharted game, but it's a super close second at the very least. Unlike the previous installment, the focus seemed to be more on the game's narrative rather than crafting a plot to connect big set-piece moments together. Which isn't to say that the set-pieces weren't impressive, they just made more sense this time around, and the story didn't suffer for it. Aside from that, the series' gameplay has never been more smooth or fun as it is in Uncharted 4, and it's easily one of the most visually impressive console games that I've ever seen. Between adding new depth to these beloved characters, smoothing out the already entertaining gameplay, and delivering a visual masterpiece, it's easy to see why Uncharted 4 may just be the PS4's definitive title. Number 3. Inside. Saying too much about Inside can spoil it, so I'll keep this one relatively short and sweet. It's creepy as hell with a very muted visual style and toys with a number of unnerving themes and ideas from slavery to body horror. In terms of gameplay, it's maybe the best example of puzzle platforming in games to this day, with simple yet challenging puzzles that are never frustrating to figure out but are rarely obvious from first glance. This fairly basic approach to gameplay allows the game's atmosphere and themes to shine through, and it's those elements that keep Inside rattling around in my skull even so many months later. Number 2. Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2 is without a doubt in my mind one of the best video game sequels in history, and this is without the first game even being that bad. Titanfall 2 brings even more fast and fluid wall-running shooter action to the table, with a range of titans to help you blast your enemies into chunks. It sets itself apart from its predecessor not only by tweaking and fine-tuning the mechanics and visuals, but by simply adding more multiplayer unlocks and gear, more titan types, and most importantly an entire single-player campaign. And don't think that this is just some Call of Duty style shooting gallery, oh no. Titanfall 2's campaign is easily one of the most entertaining and surprising shooter campaigns in years thanks to a number of epic moments in the game's slick mechanics. I mean, there's really only one shooter I can think of that tops it. Number 1. Doom. Doom is officially the most badass game I have ever played. With its fast and frantic gameplay, hellish visuals, and bone-rattling soundtrack, there was never a doubt in my mind that Doom would be my game of the year for 2016. Honestly, the game starts off fairly simple, and you feel like a cool guy going around blasting demons, but after powering yourself up and listening to Mick Gordon's legendarily awesome music for hours upon hours, you feel like you could take on the world. As I put it back in May, you feel like the god king of ultra-violence, and I stand by that. I mean, don't get me wrong, gratuitous violence isn't always necessary, but when it's done right and you commit to it wholeheartedly, you get something special. You get something memorable. You get Doom. And so begins 2017, a brand new year with a number of exciting games on the horizon. I mean, how can you not be excited when there's a ground-up remake of Crash Bandicoot on the way? Sound off in the comments below about which games made 2016 bearable for you and what you're looking forward to in the coming year. And game on!